Now we are going to talk about a story that we have covered before. This is the extraordinarily tragic event that happened back in June. I think it was the 21st. In South Africa, there was a multi-car accident, and it involved a group of young people from a branch there and their leaders, and there was an extreme loss of life. And it's really hard. Whenever I see these articles pop up, my heart breaks, and these pictures are just so poignant. It's been really hard to research this.
11 people were killed?
15 altogether. The numbers were not clear when they first came out, but that's what we're going to talk about today: the memorial service, the funeral, and the actual numbers. So, but yeah, because I just remember you're a kid in the church and you always go on these trips. Either they rent a big bus or you're in a caravan. You got your leaders that you love with you. You got your friends with you. I seriously just can't even imagine what this must be.
Oh my gosh. And there's all the coffins, the white coffins lined up side by side under the tent.
Yep. That's what I'm saying. These pictures are really hard to look at, but I thought it was really important, and I think about how when they were traveling to a youth activity, a youth conference, and when the conference got the word of what had happened, of course, they ended everyone went home. How do you have a conference? And then, of course, the word getting back to the parents who are so excited their kids are going off on this adventure. It's just heartbreaking and tragic, and we just can't express our sympathies enough. But so this is an article, God is Still God, Remembering the Lives Lost in the Lesotho, I think that's how you say it, Lesotho bus accident. And there's a couple different things that they did. So it says nearly a month, and this is true, it happened almost a month ago after the tragic bus accident that resulted in the deaths of 15 individuals. The numbers have been unclear, how many individuals and who they were exactly, including 6 young women and 4 adults, going to a district-wide young women's gathering. A memorial service provided peace to families and a community in pain. And it's not just a memorial service, it's a memorial and then a funeral. So we'll kind of explain what happened here. So it says nearly 500 individuals gathered under tents at a local soccer field in Lesotho on Wednesday. Okay, this is the memorial service, smaller than what's going to happen on Saturday, to share memories of loved ones, to comfort one another during a time of intense loss. Then 3 days later, on Saturday the 19th, a crowd of more than 3,000 with 11 caskets on the same soccer field as part of a shared funeral service. 4 others who died in the accident, because this was a multi-car kind of a pileup, have or will have separate funerals. But the LDS here are the 11. The sunrise service came after a night of heavy rain that settled the dust and cleared the air. Like I said, these pictures are just really difficult to look at when you think of the ages of these young girls. Among those in attendance from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints were leaders from the branches in the area, mission leaders from South Africa, Johannesburg Mission, and Area 70 was there, and he was actually presiding. Now, this is not a general authority. This is an Area 70 who was the top leader there, and he was presiding. Civic leaders attended, tribal chiefs, members of the parliament, and district leaders, and the prime minister. So 3,000 people. Like, this is a major event, tragedy in the country. That's
the end of the list of the attendees. Tell me there was at least one apostle who went, Rebecca.
Well, I've been looking into that. And again, not to diminish our discussion of the tragedy, but I have some questions about this. So again, it's picked up in all the different newspapers, the Tribune, the Deseret News, on the church news. Thousands gather for the joint funeral of 10 LDS members killed in Lesotho in a car crash. It says, this is what I wanted to get to. I'm not going to read every single one of these. If you guys want to, you can pause later and read. But here are the details. The crash killed 15 people and injured at least a dozen others, according to church officials. 10 of the deceased were leaders and young women of the local congregation. Here's the thing that surprised me. The branch president and his wife were killed. the branch president and his wife, in addition to a young woman's president, a counselor, and then, of course, the young women ranging in age from 12 to 16 years old. And the details kind of have trickled out. I did not realize that this branch was decimated by this crash. I want to use a different word other than tragic, but that is all I can think to say. So they have the memorial on Wednesday, and the person that presided there was sort of a local leader. And then they have the event on Saturday that's attended by 3,000 people and the prime minister, and it's presided over by an area 70, not a general authority, but an area 70. It says that let's see, the prime minister says, "I give my undivided respect to all families who have been affected by this tragedy. We pray for those who are affected by this horrible tragedy. We are here to mourn with those that mourn. Our country is at a great loss. It is a painful time." So as I said, this is a national tragedy to them. The prime minister is in attendance. Everyone knows that this has happened, and the entire country is mourning. And let's see, there are 2,000 members of the church that are in that country. And like I said, this is one branch that was, completely decimated by this scenario. They also have an area chief that spoke, and he said, "We wondered why God would not raise his mighty hand to comfort us, but everything that's been done in the wisdom of him who knoweth all things. I lack word to express how sorry I am, but I'd like to pass my sincere condolences to the families and the students and the teachers of these kids and everyone who is present today. And I say, may the souls of our brothers and sisters rest in eternal peace with our Father in heaven." So, they definitely tried to give some comfort and some peace. A young woman's president from a neighboring Latter-day Saint congregation said that she burst into tears and couldn't help but cry at the top of our lungs when they heard about the accident. I mean, this is impacting everyone in the area. But she says, of course, that she found comfort in the embrace of Jesus and pointed to his concern and continual care for everyone. And that was sort of the message, as it went on to say, let's find peace in the joy of the teachings of Jesus Christ. And this is a father of one of the daughters who was killed speaking. "Let us raise our eyes on him. Let us look to him. Family will come to an end in this life. Friends come to an end, but the Lord remains the same today and forever. And may the peace of Christ abide with each one of you today." So definitely words of comfort. Now, here are a few more pictures. Like I said, they really put a lot of pictures out, and it's just absolutely so sobering and heartbreaking. But as I was reading through all these things and all these articles in different places, I kept looking for a statement or a presence from Salt Lake leadership, right? I'm talking upper leadership of the church. This is a national tragedy on the level that a prime minister would attend this. And I kept trying to read all the articles, and I couldn't find anything about any kind of representation, from church leadership. So I asked AI, to go out there and scour the articles, and it came back, several church leaders attended the funeral services for the victims, specifically the Area 70, and his name is listed there, presided at the funeral and spoke. So the most senior person will preside. So this is the most senior person that attended. This is not one of the 102 general authorities who are out there. This is one of the hundreds and hundreds of area authorities that are out there. And he presided there in that branch. And it also went on to say, let me go back here. This is AI again. "It's important to note that while church leaders were present at the funeral and have expressed condolences from Salt Lake, the articles do not explicitly state whether any leaders from Salt Lake specifically traveled there for the event." And I couldn't find any either. And I looked at a lot of things. So AI,
if they were there, we'd know it.
I think that we would
make
know
sure
it.
we knew it.
I think that's really true. And I feel like when prime ministers are at events and things like that of this magnitude, I feel like usually there is a representation for, for church leadership. So then I started looking at, have apostles attended other events that are tragic in this vein? And I had remembered this recent one in Utah where President Holland had shown up at the funeral of a young girl who had passed away, and he had, spoken and kind of presided at that funeral there. I remembered an event from a decade ago that's hard for me to talk about because I have a personal connection to this, where 2 missionaries were killed by carbon monoxide poisoning.
Yeah.
And we have Elder Cook and actually then Elder Nelson that attended their funeral. So, upper leadership, Q15, they do they have been known to go to these events. So then I also tried to look at, do they go to West Africa or Africa? Because I thought, okay, maybe they don't travel very much there, and that's why they're letting people on the ground represent them. And I found all kinds of instances in the last year and going back where many of them have traveled to many African countries, held conferences, given remarks. We kind of talked about that, RFM.
Encouraging them to pay tithing. Yes, we all remember. So apparently apostles can make their way to Africa to hit the members up for tithing, but not for a funeral at which 10 members are killed.
Didn't something crazy happen in Mozambique?
That's right. That event in Mozambique where there was a robbery. So yeah, they do spend time in the African nation. And then I thought, okay, well, let's look for statements from upper leadership. I'm not talking about local, I'm talking about upper. When it first happened, there was Elder Rasband and his wife put out a statement. We're very sorry. It kind of came from them as a couple. It doesn't necessarily make it sound like he's saying, as an apostle of the LDS church, we are so sorry. This is Melanie and I express our condolences. It's a very heartfelt message, but again, not from, not with the stamp of the upper leadership. Now, there was a message put out by the local area presidency, and that's what they're quoting in all of the articles on the Church News and in Deseret News and in the Salt Lake Tribune. They're quoting, the statement where they say, it's a very long statement, but starts out, it is with much sadness that we share the names. They go through and they tell the names, and we have our deepest sympathies to the families and the two victims. And they go on to say that the church is helping to support, work through funeral arrangements and all of that. But again, the people who have signed this are the area presidency in Africa South. Carlos A. Godoy, right there, and Denelson Silva, he's from Brazil, and then a name that's familiar, Vai Sekahima, right? That's the area presidency, and they are the most official statement that I can find about this tragedy. So I just kind of had to put this together because to me, I think about this, like I said, I can relate to this, being a young woman going on this trip full of joy and excitement, a temple trip, whatever it is. I cannot imagine the heartache for everyone, the ward waiting back home, the parents, the people at the activity. It's just inconceivable. So who attended the services from the LDS church? Well, an Area 70, and he presided on Saturday. And again, he's one of hundreds of Area 70s. He's not a general authority. On the Wednesday memorial, a district president is the one that presided on that. And then who released a statement, expressing condolence here in an official capacity? You have the African South Area Presidency, like we just read, and also a more personal statement from Elder Ronald A. Rasband and his wife, Melanie. So I was very surprised by that because I kind of felt like, I don't know that we've ever had this kind of loss of life in the church. Can you think of any other time where it was something like this? This is a tragedy of epic levels. And I'm surprised that there isn't some kind of statement, signed by the Q15 saying, we're so sorry. I don't know. What do you guys think?
The Hans Mill Massacre and the Willie and Martin Handcart Company.
Yeah.
And that might be it.
Yeah. But as far as something like this in modern day where, missionaries are killed and and that's tragic and horrible. Yeah. I just don't even like to read the news about that kind of stuff, but they do, sometimes they'll say something, but I was just surprised at a gathering where there was a prime minister that the highest ranking LDS person was a 70. So I don't know. What do you think, RFM?
I already said what I think. And
really?
I'm just saying it by making the observation. I don't think my observations are wrong. I know that, wasn't it President Nelson who went to Africa in order to encourage the members of the church to pay tithing with the promise that tithing would raise them out of poverty if they paid it faithfully?
Yep.
So we know they know how to get there. But they couldn't find their way there for this funeral service where 10 members of the church were killed tragically.
Yep. I don't know what to make of it, but again, our hearts go out to everybody. And it's just really one of the most sad things that I've come across. And I'm really sorry for everybody. So